Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Rivalz Race Chat. Clinton, Geoffrey, and Adam Ross here again, and we're getting ready to go. Adam, how you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. I'm here this week. Nothing crashed on me, opening things up. We have Spencer loud and proud in our ears, so that's been exciting. I'm ready. We got some fun topics to talk about tonight for people watching. Hey Gary, hey Fran, hey Julie, thanks for chiming in. We really want to hear your input tonight because we got some fun things to talk about, Clinton. I'm going to tease them a little bit. The topics, not our viewers. We're gonna we're gonna talk about what people want to see from their racetracks next year. Let's operate on the assumption that we're going racing next year with fans in the stands. Everything is full speed ahead. You know, what divisions are hot, what divisions are not, what are people excited to see for next season? There's a whole smattering of news to cover. Varney Speedway has new ownership. Um, the races that happened this year. I mean, car counts were phenomenal this season when we did have races. What's going to happen next year when there's 4 facilities running on the same Saturday night throughout the season? Give us your opinions. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you're worried about for next year. We're going to try to pay attention to the comments tonight. Clinton, I'm sorry for hijacking your intro there, but I wanted to get that off my chest.
No, I love it. I'm actually struggling a bit tonight with my technical difficulties. I can't wait for the day when we just have a dedicated studio and I never have to use any of this equipment for anything else because it seems like either you or me every week has an issue. So today I'm struggling a little bit. My program feed is blank right now. I just sent Spencer a message and said I don't know whether I need to log in again or not, but
Oh,
we'll get
no,
that
mine
going.
is too.
Oh, okay. So maybe we're getting there. Hey, there we
But I
go.
can
So
see it. I see it on YouTube.
got you.
Like
See, I
it's
didn't.
later, obviously. I mute it. So I always open that coverage just to make sure that I'm still here.
I was already struggling technically, so I didn't want to get too button pushing. I know you've had some issue on a couple of your shows, and I got to tell you, your show's about anxiety on Thursdays, your Mindwell session, and the anxiety you must go through when your screen goes blank and you don't have a co-host to bounce off of. I can imagine what you go through. But you brought up some great topics off the top. Want to welcome everybody to the show as we love to sit down and spend our Tuesday evening with you guys and talk about some of the things that are going on.
Hey,
Adam, the snow's
you want to
about
hear
to
something
set.
cool?
Yeah, I do.
You brought up Thursday night. Uh, 3 weeks from Thursday, 2 weeks from Thursday. Does the name Hal Johnson ring a bell to you, Clinton?
Yeah, from oh, don't say it. It's not participation, is it? But it's that thing,
He
right?
wa-
Get
he
paid
was. It
for
was
it.
participation.
Okay. So for our American
But
viewers, it was a PSA here in Canada, if not on Ontario, if not all of Canada, about getting up and being active and healthier eating. Right? It'd be like a 10-second or 15-second thing they jam in some commercial breaks.
yep, he was the man. Hal and his wife Joanne. Uh, they were the PSA. So Body Break is their brand,
That's what it was.
bodybreak.com. But yeah, they were behind participation. Yeah, I spoke with him last night at length. He doesn't deal with mental health issues, but who better to talk to about mental health than a guy who tried to lift our spirits since we were kids?
Yeah, he had that gleaming smile. When you think about it, though, what better way to deal with that kind of stuff than getting up and moving around and eating healthier is a good start. But if you want more about that, check Adam's show. That's Thursdays at 7. And it's always very uplifting to figure out ways to cope with what's going on in the world. And this has been a crazy year. As you mentioned, Adam, what races do you want to see? What divisions do you want to see? What type of events would you like to see put together? If you're dreaming, let's hear what your dreams are. And maybe we can talk about how how things are going and where we figure every division's going.
So
We'd love to hear from you, whatever your favorite division is. Also want to mention we have Greg Mcpherson coming on from Inside Track and Motorama. They've got their pulse on a lot of things through all their touches here in the motorsports world in Canada. And we're looking forward to talking to Greg about the situation going on with Motorama. In fact, we were at Motorama when COVID hit, and that's kind of where for me, Motorama will always be associated with COVID because it was that weekend when we all got taken away.
yeah, yeah, that's when the world changed. Clint, do you and I want to start, or are we going to bring on Greg first? Like, do you want to talk about what you want to see, and I can do the same, and we can hope that the fans. We're already getting lots of comments. Of course, anytime Doug Leonard's around and Gary calling, we're going to get some chatter. Great to see Doug Erskine throw in his 2 cents. So we love it, guys. Please on the YouTube page, GeForce TV. I don't think we're on Facebook tonight, are we, Clinton?
So
Yeah, we
thanks,
are?
Spencer.
Okay. I'll click
So
on that
Spencer,
so we can follow that chatter as well.
throw up any comments you get, Spencer, and we'll just tee them back as they come up on the screen. And you guys can dictate the discussion here tonight. We also want to know what divisions need help, whether it be on dirt or pavement here in our neck of the woods. What divisions, what kind of help could we get them? What kind of direction do these divisions need to take? So a bit of an open discussion on the state of racing here in Ontario. In our neck of the woods, we have Blacktop Rivalz racing tonight at Watkins Glen. Adam, maybe let's talk about that for a second. We'll wait for Greg to chime in and everything else we got going on. We got Blacktop Rivalz coming up at Watkins Glen. The Ovens boys are going to call that race going to kick off. I've been saying 9 o'clock, but then I'm over there going, where is it? I realize it's like a 9:10, 9:15 start after
9:10.
qualifying, right?
9:10 the grid leaves. Tonight's going to be fun. We're at Watkins Glen, and I've already seen, I was in there doing some practicing. Kevin Lacroix is in there. Michael Morley, who is really good on iRacing. John Schweikart, the gang is all there. But Kevin Lacroix, Alex Ellis, some big names that people would know from around here. So we're already a little bit over 20 drivers in the server, and I know there's a handful more coming. And it's a battle of survival, but it's really good racing.
Tonight might be the night I could get in there because there's no yellows tonight, so I couldn't slow the show down unless I wrecked somebody big, which probably be my luck. I would do that. We want to have that happen, but that would be rough. So I'm just trying to stay out of the way. But check that out tonight, coming up on GeForce right after our show, about 10 minutes after we're done. Go grab a break, grab some popcorn, come on back, and you're going to see some amazing racing as some of the best in iRacing here in our neck of the woods take it on Watkins Glen tonight, and that's going to be an entertaining deal. As we get set to go, Spencer, throw up a comment or two. What are we going to get going here, Adam? What do you want to talk about? Or maybe you want to tell me your wishes first, Adam.
Greg commented that he has signed in. So Spencer, look for Greg in the back end. He says he is logged in, Greg. We do not see you, Greg. So if you click the link and we don't see you, I'm not sure why that would be, but hopefully we can get that rectified. What would I like to see? I loved the shows we did with late models, super stocks, hot rods. Those were, I think, my three favorite classes, and no disrespect, because we saw great racing from mini stocks and pure stocks and modifieds, but for some reason, to me, APC late models, super stocks with combined rules, and hot rods make a fantastic show. Throw in one more division with lots and lots of cars, and mini stocks would be a perfect example. Mini stocks are pure stocks because they tend to be a division that can run really quick. They don't have a lot of yellows, and I think you'd have an action-packed program. So as far as that formula, I love it. And again, no disrespect to any divisions I didn't mention. Those are just the ones that I was really impressed with. On dirt, I got to say it's 360 sprint cars, crate sprint cars, thunder stocks, mini stocks. I'm very concerned about modified racing right now in terms of premier events and headline events. I think there's got to be some sort of cooperation, some sort of understanding with teams from Quebec and teams from Ontario that they support each other, because without joining them, Clinton, I just don't see getting really jazzed up about a big small block modified race when they're struggling to draw numbers. Get a whole handful, get a dozen Quebec cars to come this way, get a dozen of our cars to go that way when they have big shows. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that gap needs to be bridged a lot more because from both ends of the 401, let's say, it was much easier to jump across to New York and mesh with those cars than it was to drive the 5 hours, around the Golden Horseshoe Toronto corridor. So now I think, we learned this year more than ever, a guy like Jordan Poirier coming to these Merrittville dirt races, having to drive 8 hours that way instead of just crossing the river for maybe a 2 or 3 hour tow. They've all had to adjust. And if the border stays the way it is, we'll have to see how that goes. We're ready to talk to Greg Mcpherson. Keep your comments coming. We want to know what races you want to see, what we can do to help the divisions, and what divisions need help. But in the meantime, we'll bring in Greg Mcpherson from Inside Track Communications and the Motorama Show and Inside Motorcycles and Inside Everything. And Greg, do you have an Inside Politics magazine yet? Because I know you've chimed off a few times on about our politicians and what's gone on here
It's,
and the way things have gone on in 2020. Did we freeze up with Greg?
we do seem frozen with Greg. He does have inside politics. It's his own Facebook page. I always enjoy a Greg Mcpherson post because they're hard hitting, they're direct to the point. We'll wait until we get a connection with Greg. We're going to get that sorted out. We're on the right track here, and I'm
Try
seeing,
again,
and
Greg.
here's the challenge. I
Spencer
saw
is
some
asking if
super
Greg
modif.
can log in one more time. So try and log in again, Greg. If we can, we had you. We saw you. What else is on the rundown that we want to talk about tonight? So a couple
Well,
of things that we wanted to bring up tonight that we're open to talk about. The scanner video we're going to talk about will be our Burger Barn video of the week, and that's with Eric Jones and the team orders this week. We'll talk about Kevin Harvick spinning Kyle Busch, talk about the playoffs. Do playoffs belong in racing? A couple other things we want to mention. Dale Jr. joins iRacing, our Triple Crown charity race with success, and Luke Duke is an actual racer. But while we wait to get everything going here with Greg, just want to send out a quick condolence, Adam. This is something that we meant to speak of last week. Uh, you know, I moved it off the rundown, but I said, don't let us forget it. Ron McKay's wife, Karen McKay, passed away. Ron is a big, a lot to do with Hoosier Tire Canada. If you've been racing anything in Ontario or Canada, you've probably dealt with Ron. And Adam, horrible deal there. What do you know about the situation?
Yeah, sudden and unexpected passing. So very sad. Ron and Karen were an amazing team. So my heart breaks for Ron. Just so sorry for him. And again, like you say, if you've ever raced something with Hoosier Tires, you probably communicated with Ron McKay down at Bicknell Racing Products. So our thoughts go out to Ron and the McKay family. And sad news, one of the people that have commented on our stuff since the very beginning, since we started, and I hope I pronounce his name right, but Peter Maychek. I'm not sure how you say that last name, but we recently lost him, and just sad, man. It's there's no easy way to share that or talk about that. It's just sad.
No, we did want to mention we were thinking about them. Let's turn the page a bit. Greg is back with us. Greg Mcpherson. Greg, welcome back to the program here. Thanks for your time. I know I'm
Hey
sure you're
guys,
watching,
absolutely.
like all of us, watching the election going on in the States, but tell us quickly the status of what's happening with Motorama and how things are going with the magazine.
Okay, so the magazine, it's going all right. Like we're doing what we can and covering the stories that we can and documented COVID and all that. But with the show Motorama, my gosh, when we shut it down that Sunday, March whatever 13, 15, and they said 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We little did we think that we'd be canceling the 2021 version of the show. Just brutal, but it was out of our hands. We've been in contact with the International Center. They're basically using their space as storage now to do what they can to pay the bills. But we've got our date for 2022. But it's the craziest thing. Like, and you guys felt it all summer, like with Oshweekend. You never would have imagined you'd never have a race there all summer, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's so very frustrating. Talk about it from a business perspective, Greg. A lot of us remember going back to the 90s, the birth of Inside Track Motorsport News. But in the last number of years, how big a deal has Motorama become in your overall business plan? How important is that event to your company?
Oh gosh, it's been huge because we send out renewals after the next year. When we first took it over, prior to that we'd had for several years the Canadian Motorsports Expo, and it was like small racing only show, and it was great, and the racing community embraced it and did what they could. But man, when 7 years ago, when they asked us to take over that racing show that's and hot rod show that's been at the International Center at the start of March break for 50 years. It was amazing, and it was kind of hurt from what was going on before, but every year, like and this past year, we filled it was like 250,000 square feet. We'd introduced a truck zone. This next year, we were looking at taking another 100,000 square feet, like just for that. Like, and then this, we're not the only ones, but you got whacked good.
Greg, let's talk about the popularity of the show. It grew every year. You did a great job bringing in more and more and more stars coming in, and as you talked about, the square footage continued to grow. But let's talk about the future of the show. Are you going to be able to recover from this? How have your vendor partners been handling the news? And, what's the basic sentiment going forward about, Motorama and the situation you guys are in?
It's crazy. Like, the support has been amazing. Everyone has been so nice. So you just held off as long as we could, saying what we all knew was going to happen. So, but we did. We finally, the International Center wouldn't rent us a space. They're shut until at least May. You can only let 50 people in, all that, same as everybody else. So we put out the note the other day saying, that's it. We look ahead to 2022, March, whatever it is, 11, 12, 13. And anyway, yeah, it's like, keep our powder dry, pull the horns in, and aim to put on the biggest and best show ever then. But yeah, and it's the craziest thing. Like the other day, I'm on the 401. I'm driving by Yorkdale, and it looked like Christmas shopping. Like there's like got to be 10,000 cars in the parking lot, and everyone's in there, and But
oh boy,
that's allowed. That's allowed, but no contact
yeah,
tracing, no nothing. But we could rent out the International Center and we could let 50 people in.
Yeah,
But
it is
but like they
frustrating.
get into Clinton's point, like everyone's been so supportive. So I think it was yesterday morning, we just finally sent out a formal note to all of the people who were exhibitors, sponsors, and car owners at the show last year. It was the same email list that I'd sent out stuff to them on the Saturday night last year when we weren't allowed to open on the Sunday, and it was like, just, there's the deal. Sorry, can't do it this year, but we'll see y'all. And the emails and the messages have been amazing. Everyone's just like, either it's like like, damn, I can't believe it, or it's the right decision, and we'll see you next year. But it's like everyone loves the show. It was a thing before us, and people know we put our hearts into it and how hard we work on it. And I'm sure it'll be awesome in 2022. The only bad part is it's so far away.
Without that show, a lot of drivers wouldn't know when they're supposed to start working on their race cars for opening night.
So that's the best thing about Motorama, because it's the middle of March. I don't know if you remember the CME. That was like last week in January. That talk about pulling teeth. Good luck. Can you get your car ready for the end of January? Like,
I don't think so.
You're right. I mean, for us as promoters, that was our deadline for printing. We backed everything up off of Motorama because we have our posters and our schedules and any of our business materials ready for then. Greg, let's talk about some of the situations. You've got your finger on the pulse. You hinted to it a bit about. I know you're pretty vocal about the the frustrations. Well, how can this happen? But all our racing friends can't be, and we appreciate that. Let's talk about what's going on in NASCAR this weekend. Before we let you go, what's your opinion on all this hot stories, the team orders and the playoff racing and Harvick situation? Do you think it belongs, or where do we stand?
Okay, I am a total traditionalist. Like, I'm still upset that more than 4 teams make the baseball playoffs. Like, a pennant used to mean something when you were one of the last 4 teams. So this whole thing it's a Brian France thing because Matt Kenseth kicked everyone's butt one year. It's so contrived. Like, do you care who won a stage race? Like anyway, it's just it used to mean something. You'd win all year long. You were steady. You scored points. That meant something. Like I love Kyle Busch. He came to our show. He's great. But the year he missed the first 10 races and won the championship, and it's like, are you kidding me?
And you know what, Greg? I thought the same thing as you did, and I'm starting to come around. And I'll tell you why. It's because I've already decided, and even Kevin Harvick in his post-race interview at Martinsville, I thought he said it really well. He says, gone are the days of winning championships like Petty and Pearson did. It's a different game, and it's got to be broken down into weeks. And I think if you completely put that out of your mind, because I'm with you, a championship is won all year long. You have to be good on super speedway, short tracks, road courses, intermediates. Kevin Harvick would have locked up the title in Texas, and all he would have had to do was start the rest of the year. And it doesn't necessarily build up to all that much drama, because unlike a lot of sports, and I can't believe I'm defending NASCAR because it's not something that I do.
But you look,
it really,
like sometimes in sports, someone gets their ass kicked. It's part of sports. Like if your sole purpose is to have a dramatic thing in, crapshoot at Miami, then is that sports or is it wrestling? I don't know.
Well, there lies the problem. When NASCAR got away from the notion that it was entertainment, that's when things went for a shit.
Yeah,
like they're not.
Man, I remember one of my craziest NASCAR memories. It was there was one time, I think it was Daytona, Talladega. There was a crazy wreck, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. was Senior was on his roof, rolling around. I think he broke some ribs. And then the next weekend, I went to the race at Watkins Glen, and the bugger went in the car. No one thought he'd do it. And then I think he put it on the pole. And I'm like, you're there with the microphone in his face, sitting on the back of the hauler. And it's like, why are you doing this? And it was just because of the championship. But now it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's like,
you have to say goodbye to that. And so that's what I've done. I dislike a lot of what NASCAR does, but I really like what they did with stage racing and this championship format. I know it's not.
But why? Like, who's ever said like, "Woo, I want a stage"? Yeah, like no one cares about stages.
But they do now. Like it's growing, it's building the viewership. Like it's one of the few things they're doing that I think is working. Like they're building these rivalries there. And Fran, so Spencer, if you would put up Fran's comment, because while we're on this topic, we can talk about what Fran had said about non-playoff drivers affecting the championship. I love that too. I know,
and that's the thing. Like always, nobody counts. Like you watch Homestead, like in years past, and like it's like there's no one else on the racetrack. It's like, how does that happen? That the top four are these, like, they've given them orders. Talk about team orders. It's like, don't mess up our race. Stay out of their way. It's not even a race.
And I'm sorry, Clint. I'm sorry I haven't opened things up to you, but they figured it out. They showed Eric Jones messing with Denny Hamlin. Like Eric Jones almost cost his teammate, and they actually told the story. And this is what they needed to do. Tell the story. Eric Jones got freaking fired. Like Joe Gibbs ruined his life. That's what this kid thinks right now. And all he needed to do was let his foot off the brake and and he raced him clean. He raced him hard and clean for all those final laps. But the fact is, they actually showed the story, and that's what they've needed to do. Pick out the stories and tell people why this matters, why we're focused on this. That's what I like. They actually got that component right. Clint?
Yeah, I was going to switch topics a little bit. I agree. We're going to come back to that because we have some video of that later in the show. I was going to talk about the choose line, the choose rule on cautions. That's something that I have looked at possibly bringing into dirt racing. I love that new aspect of challenge. Greg, if you're a traditionalist, what do you think about that? I mean, I thought that has brought a lot of new excitement to the races. And just back to touch on stage racing, I don't think it's so much about celebrating a stage race. I think what that helps with is the shorter generation attention span of this next generation we're dealing with. It breaks the races up into compartments, so you don't have to be invested into it for 3 hours. You can watch a stage and see somebody win something. But I love this new choose rule on cautions. I think it could bring a whole new bunch of strategy to short track racing in our neck of the woods. First off, Greg, what do you thought?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
No, especially if you got an even track, where it's it's equal in terms of where you think you're handling better or whatever. Like, yeah, that's the way to go. It's like, yeah, I'm a traditionalist, but you like things to be interesting. I just don't want them to be contrived.
Okay, you want to talk about contrived? I'm going to jump back in here. What is this bullshit with traction compound? That pisses me off. A track's a track. What are we doing? We're laying corn syrup on the outside to try and gain another lane here. I'm not a big fan of that.
No, I used to think it was awesome when you go to the indoor races in Niagara Falls and they were pouring Coca-Cola and brake fluid or whatever on the grooves to make the place fun. But
That
yeah,
that was necessary.
oh,
There
I
was
know, I
no
know,
grip. Like,
I know. My gosh, I miss that. Was that the best way to spend a couple Saturdays in the winter?
oh man, I likely took years off my life sucking those fumes in, and I would gladly take more years off to relive those weekends.
Totally. I know every time it's, when you're friends with people on Facebook and they've passed and you're like, you don't think of them and they come up. So every time Harry Macy comes up and I think of those, nights down in the convention center in Niagara Falls, those were awesome.
The races were fun, but the pizza parties after the races that Harry Macy
Yeah.
hosted in the hotel next door,
Yeah.
where the drinking and the storytelling that went on. I sat in there one night. I don't. Merv Treichler was one of the fellas sitting there. Like, it was just generations of knowledge and stories, and they were so amazing.
I
Everyone
know.
should have that opportunity.
Is that not the best? That reminds me. Like, yeah, when you're just like, I'm just going to get really quiet and just suck it all in here. That reminds me of the night when we had Bobby Allison come up to Motorama and Saturday night, and we didn't know what we were going to eat or do whatever. And Jim Bray said, "Oh, my sponsor down in Lakeshore, like Aiello's or this thing, nice Italian restaurant." And you're just sitting there, and it's Jim Bray and Bobby Allison talking, and Jim's like, "Oh, Bobby, I don't think Greg knows about the night you drove. You're the first person to drive 200 to Talladega." And then the story would come out, and you're just sitting there going, like, "Oh my God, where's the camera?"
Jim's memory is striking. Clinton, let's put Greg on the spot. Greg, we were
Uh-oh.
talking about things. There wasn't a whole lot to love about 2020, but we were
Yeah.
talking about things that we saw that we did like that get us excited about 2021. You were out to a few races this year. What sticks out in your mind that you kind of thought, man, that was a good deal?
Yeah, just overall, how much people missed it. Like the idea that you couldn't go, like you're not allowed. Like it was awesome. Like I was so happy I could get to go to the 3 NASCAR Pinty Series, like Fan Cave Challenge races. But and the APC Series races were great, and whoever else was able to put something together, like through you guys and G Force and what you were doing. But man, to just reinforce what a part of people's lives it is, and that's how they spend times with their family and their friends on the weekend, and they couldn't do it, and how much they missed it. So I know there's a risk that people find other things to do, and you don't know if they miss it or not, but like my perception was they really missed it, and this is part of their lives. It's what they've done with their families forever, and they're really looking forward to getting back to it.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there, Greg. We were all concerned a little bit. Are they going to sell all the race cars, buy boats, and we're going to lose all these people? But I
Yeah.
think everybody dug in their heels and realized we need to work together. I think we all learned to do things differently, and I think there's going to be some real good positives come out of that. A guy like Dean Reynolds, when we talked to him a few weeks back, was telling us from Dirt Car, some of the procedures they learned are going to carry into the future and make things more efficient and better for the racers and the fans and the tracks also. So that's exciting. I know we learned a lot this year too, so we're excited to get back to work in 2021. Big question, Greg, before we let you go. Are we going to be back to full capacity in April here in Ontario when we need to get going? I know it's a tough, but what's your gut tell you? You're not a
I know
politician.
we're all I know we're all reading the tea leaves, but like I'm upstairs tonight watching the election. I hope a lot of it's politics. I hope a lot of it's gone away tomorrow. I hope it gets down to science. I hope we're as close to vaccines as they say we are. for the people say they're not going to take the vaccine. I don't know what the end game is there. Like, you're going to hide in your basement for 5 more years? Like,
No,
you know,
it should be
nine.
like Fox hockey coverage. If you don't get the vaccine, you have one of those blue streaks following behind you. So the way
You
they
know
used
what?
to
We
chase the puck.
give the vaccine to our parents, the healthcare workers, the rest of us. Oh my God! If you watch, like, what's Trump, 74 and obese, Chris Christie, like, if these guys can kick it, I think most of us are good. So, not to belittle what happened before and stuff, but, like, I don't know. At this point, I'd rather roll the dice and get it over with one way or the other than feel like a lobster in the pot with the heat being
If you
turned
don't
up
laugh,
for 2 years, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't laugh about it, it's going to get you. Greg, thanks so much for joining us. Remind the fans where they can find information on Motorama and some of the new projects that you guys have coming up.
Sure. So we're right now, so in the middle of all the quiet times, like, we've still been working on stuff. So we're coming out with a big new website upgrade for our magazines, Inside Track, so insidetracknews.com. That'll be out pretty soon, incorporating more multimedia and stuff like that. And so Motorama show, I still don't know exactly. Like, we're reading the tea leaves with people doing virtual shows and different things like that. I'm sure we'll load up content and things, but I don't know if it's there to do, like, what SEMA or PRI are trying to do with their big shows and the virtual stuff. But otherwise, with the magazines, we're just loading it up with features, profiles, news, commentary, trying to add things that, stay relevant, stay interesting to racing fans and people. Yeah, that's the play it until we can all hopefully get out and go to racetracks like normal in the spring.
All right, Greg, thanks for being with us. We'll stay in touch, and we'll keep everybody posted on your projects. And if you got something to promote, give us a call.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. All the best.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
One of the good guys in Canadian motorsports media. Adam done a lot for us over the years, and I love the magazine. I still read the thing cover to cover every time it comes out. So we appreciate having Greg on, and we've been a big part of the Motorama show for all the years. And for me, most of my big business has gone on there. That's where Ush Weekend, where we ended up with our Mav TV deal, and a lot of the networking we've done over the past few years actually came at the Motorama show. So it is a value as a business tool for us tracks as well. We had some comments come in about what races people want to see. So Spencer, throw up a couple comments here, and we'll go through that, and we'll discuss on that. Adam, I am seriously thinking about this choose rule, and we'll get back to that in a second. Jimmy Thompson says he'd like to see the 360 sprints do 50 laps at the Canadian Sprint Car Nationals. I can't disagree, but I have to disagree because the 35 lap format, Adam, in what was last year? Last year would have been the 16th time. So in 15 editions of the Canadian Sprint Car Nationals, we have seen some amazing races that came down to the last lap or two pass. Things like, the night Brian Hallen went from tail and beat them coming to the line. We've seen some amazing races in recent years. And I love the format of there. So as much as I take all comments, I'll defend the 35 lap format. What do you think?
Sure. Maybe there's a different race where that would work. Maybe you run
Yeah.
some sort of an Ironman sprint car race, figure out what's the farthest you can go and do it as a different animal on a different night. But no, like you say, and that's how I try to listen to ideas and look at ideas and say, okay, well, maybe it wouldn't work in this instance, but maybe that's a separate entity unto its own. So the Summer Nationals, right?
Well,
Like
I do have
maybe
my
you
paper
tweak it
and pen. I just wrote down Ironman sprint car race. I love the concept. I just don't know the national. The formula has been so good, and the timing of the finishes have been like nail biters. Like 5 out of the 15 times it came down to that last lap move on lap 35. And I love the timing and the way it works out. But yeah, 50 lap sprint car race, that could work. And we're looking for new ideas. I mean, if anything showed us, if this year showed us anything, it's that no ideas off the table and anything is possible because we don't really have a box anymore. Everybody's had to think outside the box. Trevor Want says
So
410 sprint cars. Go ahead, Adam. Did I jump ahead on that?
No, I'm not against this. So put that comment back up, Spencer. 410 sprint cars, and someone else had put up a comment asking, "Hey, could 410s work?" And my answer is this: yes, they certainly could if you designed a spec engine package. The reason 410s could work, in my opinion, is if you can make one that's more reliable than a 360 and do it more affordably to make lots of horsepower and make it a big deal. Yeah, maybe it can work. 410s for the sake of running 410s. Uh, I think you drive a wider spike, and I mean we're not throwing up ideas so that we can shoot them down. I just think the reason 360s work is because people think they can afford them. But 410 sure would be interesting.
Let's maybe not look at it as we're just shooting them down out of the sky. Let's look at we're using the science behind why we don't think they're going to work. And I'll tell you why I don't think the science behind and I want to come back to the APC series last week in a minute, but let's talk about the science behind 410s, okay? So for one, there's none of them around here. For miles and miles and states, there really aren't. The nearest 410 is Pennsylvania or Ohio, really. There might be some in Michigan, but you're still looking at 5-6 hours. We don't have any here at home to start a core new division out of the deal. Now, I can tell you one thing I did task our guys with, and some of the engine builders around here we talked about. Right now, the cost of a 360 engine is going through the roof. I did talk to a couple of engine builders and said if you could build a package that would produce 700 or between 600 and 700 horsepower, that doesn't necessarily need to be a 360 motor, but can produce comparable, horsepower and torque for 20,000 Canadian at 650 to 700 horsepower, that'll run a complete season. We would look at adapting the 360 rules at our weekend and here in Ontario, some of the other events, to get that package in there in an effort to be affordable. Everybody came back and said it would be 25 or more to even start. And at that point, you can already buy a $25,000 360 motor on the lower end of things. So we've kind of let that go to the wayside. But that was a task. The 410s just isn't any help around here. And, even when we brought in the World of Outlaws, they would bring, 18, 20 cars. We still needed 10 of our 360s who were basically forced to bring a knife to a gunfight. And we forced them to race through points because we needed them to fill in the show. I like our new format now, the Summer Nationals, where it's the best of the 360 drivers. We still bring in superstar power like Christopher Bell, Rico Abreu, Tony Stewart to add their 360s to our field. And we have 2 days where we reward our best guys and our hometowners without putting them into a corner. Make sense?
What other? Yeah, absolutely. What other suggestions we got there, Spencer? APC series at Ushweekend.
Well,
I
you want to
why
bite
not?
your tongue? Yeah,
no.
I agree. Science is
wow.
what?
We suck.
The science behind it, though, Adam, is we made a deal with NPS, NASCAR Pinty Series. We have yet to have that race. So until that goes off and we work out the bugs of that, I mean, the Lucas Oil series, they reached out to us to try and get it part of that deal too. I think the bottom line is, though, we need to make it work with the NASCAR Pinty Series first. We got to make that race and work, and then we'll see, hey, if it works with those late models on dirt, the sky's the limit on what we could do with dirt events and late models that are traditionally on pavement.
Yep.
What else you got?
I saw a comment. Okay, we'll go with Anthony's here. We need to see the mod lights more at Ushweekend. And Anthony, I love the mod lights at Ushweekend, but if they don't show up with 24 cars, it doesn't look very good. It's too big and too wide a racetrack. And that's the challenge. When you run a Friday night track that already has full fields in every division, it's tough to bring in an extra division. So I agree. Love the mod lights at Ushweekend. If it was a big enough race that you could bring in 24, 30 cars, I think it'd be bang on.
Yeah, we saw the mod lights go ebb and flow, and Paul Klegger, who now races Crates with us, he was running the Tusa Mod Light Tour, and I had to have that talk with Paul. And Paul's been one of my buddies for 25 years, but we had to have that talk as the manager. Like, Paul, 14 cars don't work. If we can't get up to 20 or 24 cars, we just can't keep booking anymore. Same thing with the 358 modifieds. That's why they don't come to us weekend. Not like it isn't all of our friends and all the guys we go watch every weekend, but when we would put them on the Monday of our biggest event of the year with the World of Outlaws, and 12 or 13 guys showed up when we were paying great purse more than they were getting on a regular night, it just tells you after a while, thanks to the guys who did come, but sorry, we just can't do it anymore. We need to fill up that time. And that's the benefit our weekend has, where our core divisions are doing so well that it's tough to, like you said, Adam, cut somebody out or jam someone else in there time wise, unless they're bringing the full punch. But I agree, and there's a lot of divisions out there that are half-assed with cars right now that I think, as promoters, we either got to find a way to push them and fix them, or squash them and make the guys move to other divisions and make everything else healthy, because the worst thing you can have is 7 divisions with 7 cars.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And there's a lot of tracks that had been surviving on that. And then thankfully, a lot of these tracks are picking up car counts. Like the Superstock shows this year were phenomenal. Like I was really, really impressed that they could bring that many cars that often and put on such great racing. There was a comment earlier, and I don't know if Spencer grabbed it or not, but someone wanted to see a 100-lap Thunderstock race. Clinton, I am all about that. In fact, I'd like to double down. I'd like to see a 200-lap Thunderstock race with a hot pit road in the pits for when they have to come in and change tires. And I think it could just be an absolute blast. But an extra distance race for those race cars could be a lot of fun.
I'm not against it. The science behind that, if I keep going back to that, is we run 50 lappers a few times a year at Osh Weekend. We invariably cook a few transmissions every time we rank those cars run for 50 laps. They just can't keep them cool. They end up burning them out. So with that being said, I think attrition would be a bit of an issue. You need a good car count. One thing I can tell you is there are some sponsors in the Thunderstock world prior to last season and are still carried over this season that are looking to do a long distance, big paying Thunderstock race. And we'll see where that race ends up being. But there is a sponsor out there hanging a big one in the wind, ready to put a big race on the deal. And we'll see what comes of it. Maybe we can get them to stretch it to 100 laps. Mark De Silva says, saw a championship race in the States, put top 5 minis versus 5 Thunderstocks versus 5 crates versus 5 360s, handicapping by laps that have to be run. Mark, my boy said this, Jack, about when he was probably 7 years ago when he was about 5 years old. I love that idea. I thought about getting a guy like Tommy Gooch to figure out the science behind how many laps, So, for example, the 360 cars have to run 20 laps. A crate has to run 15 laps. A Thunderstock has to run 12, and a mini stock has to run 10, and see who can get those laps done first. And it's funny you mention that, because remember, Adam, we've been talking about fun races on iRacing to take our group of iRacers out and just have some fun. And I did a race at Oxford like that, where it was dwarf cars versus street stocks versus Indy cars or something like that. And it was entertaining because the Indy cars were so fragile. You touch anything, you broke. And the dwarf car ended up beating everybody because he could just hug the bottom and stay out of trouble. But I think that is an interesting concept. I've often thought about a run what you brung race, because we saw that cool stuff last week that we ended the show with. I think if we put up a good purse for a run what you brung, I've often fantasized about a 4-cylinder and 8-cylinder run what you brung classes without sprint cars. So no sprint cars, whatever else you want to build, come on out and run V8 or 4-cylinder. We do 2 classes. And I think if you had enough time and enough ingenuity and put the promo behind it, you could have a really cool deal. And I think that type of event would be a perfect one where you merge all the classes together and go for it with your top 5 guys. What about safety? I think safety would be an issue when you get mini stocks and sprint cars. And, we do it in road racing at Daytona.
Yeah, right. And I was going to say, safety is definitely an issue, but that's why you have drivers meet and say, guys, it's a little bit different. When you have a sprint car race with full of sprint cars in the field, you race a certain way. You're going to be out there with full fendered cars, front wheel drive cars. Yeah, you have to drive accordingly and make it work.
Trevor Want says sportsman versus modified race at our weekend. Most sportsmen were on the bottom lane last year. I imagine most of the mods will be on the top with the power down. Could be a big field of cars. My concern there, Adam, is the track conditions, because on a slick track at our weekend could work. On a tacky track, I think the modifieds are just going to dust the sportsman, because a race like that would be good at a place like Humberstone or Merrittville, where you're really kind of putting the kickstand down, trying to get going again. The sportsman guys keep their momentum. The modified guys, more power, are trying to put that power down without spinning the tires. I think it could work. They used to have that at the end of the year at Merrittville. It was the it was the Hydrovac Sludge Grudge, they called it, and it was I think they made all the sportsmen run their qualifying heats together, and the modifieds would run their qualifying heats together, and then they would take the top 12 qualifiers from each of those, and sportsmen on the inside lane, modifieds on the outside lane, heads up, and it was entertaining.
To take off on Fran's point, where at Lancaster and Cayuga combined to race modifieds versus late models. So you had the Junior Hanleys versus the Maynard Troyers, but what you also had was a lot of collaboration after that made modifieds turn an awful lot better than they did beforehand. So some of these novelty races bring in innovation that wasn't there prior to that. So there's a lot of things you could do that'd be really cool, really fun. I do think we're talking a lot about dirt racing, but on asphalt, the same things apply. And I remember I was saying that about the hobby cars, the vintage modifieds, and what would keep you from being able to run them with the Oscar hot rods when the modifieds were short on race cars. But now the vintage modifieds are up and over 20 cars, so things are going a little bit better, and you don't really have to have those conversations. But no, I think it's thinking outside the box, and it's exciting and it's fun.
I wonder if any of our viewers caught the races from Georgetown this past weekend on DTD TV. One of the classes, I'm not sure it was hot laps or whether they're actually racing. I got in late and didn't catch it, but they looked like they were racing vintage modifieds and late models together. I don't know if they were vintage late models and vintage modifieds. Like, I don't know, but I definitely seen them on the track because it was an incident where they crashed. A modified got together with a late model, and I'm not sure where that all was. Pretty wild flip though, but yeah. Put up that comment. I saw Dave Bailey's name in the comment there, Spencer. I think he got one in the queue. Dave Bailey would have to drive backwards for the 100-lap Thunderstock race, and he still might win.
I'll tell you, he's pretty good, but he's not unbeatable. And on a slick track, you got guys like Ryan Beagle and Clinton. We talked about this all summer long when we watched Thunderstock races, whether it was at Brighton or Merrittville or Humberstone. You really can't tell anymore what track someone comes from. Like it used to be, the Merrittville cars were the cars to beat. And then for a while, Oshwegan got really hot, and our Oshwegan's best and Merrittville's best were kind of head to head. Now with the combined rules, you take the hot shoes from every racetrack, and you'll have a pretty close race. I would never bet against Dave Bailey, but I'm saying you wouldn't have the checkmate out before the race started. That's for sure.
And you wouldn't be out of line on paper betting on a guy like Steve Shaw Sr. or Wade Purchase or Justin Ramsey from both ends of that spectrum too. So you're right, Adam. And let's get back to Superstock racing on the pavement. We saw some amazing races where everybody got together, but the rules are still kind of all over the place. And there's been some efforts to get them together, Adam. Some interesting thoughts on where Superstocks are going to land. We all thought McCall and the guys from APC were going to put their arms around it. Don't know where that stands right now, but they did organize a few races as part of our APC series that we covered here on G-Force. As you mentioned, the car counts and the racing were great, but it's very tough to merge 4 to 5 different tracks of rules to get them all in the same gear rule, to get them all in the same system of how it's all going to work. The biggest concern I think they're going to have is bodies, because even on the dirt where you don't think aerodynamics is that big of a deal, that's still to this day the battle we fight year after year is what's going to be allowed with these bodies. And, I think that, and again, I'm talking as a dirt guy watching from the outside, but I think that's kind of what went wrong with the Superstocks. It was in the beginning was when they got away from the steel-bodied cars, they started looking like the late models. You had cars that were running a junkyard steel body off something that you'd see off the dirt track, and then you have somebody like a brand new, late model body on their what's supposed to be a street stock, and it just kind of divided them. What are your thoughts on the situation going on with Superstocks here in Ontario right now?
I think we all witnessed how great it can be. Now we know from the background that there's some challenges with the rules, but it's up to somebody. Whether it's the track promoters getting together and combining rules, there's got to be compromise. But by and large, I tell you this now, you're either going to see the class implode and disappear because they can't get together on rules, or you're going to see a phenomenal Superstock showing over the next few years. And I hope it goes that way, Clinton. I hope it leads towards phenomenal. Because, like I say, I really enjoyed the racing. I really enjoyed the show it put on. And we better move along. I got to qualify at Watkins Glen here in 9 minutes, but I want to get to the Burger Barn video of the week. I want us to remember Caldecott Millwrights, and we're going to have to work them into the show a little bit stronger next week, so we can talk more about them and some of our other great partners, because we get talking racing and sometimes we leave those behind. But I want to get to the Burger Barn video of the week, and I want to talk a little bit more NASCAR racing, Clinton, before we get to the end of this.
Roll it, Spencer.
This is fucking horse shit. He's blocking you because he needs the points. It's really tight between the 11, the 2, and the 4. I'm going to race you hard because it's 3 points on those guys, just so you're aware. Got a huge gap behind me. Don't pass him, Jones. Stay with him and drive what you can. Good car, Chris. I don't have much to say about the end. I'll talk to you when I get in there. Yep, exactly.
Wow.
It's pretty ballsy. Did I hear a spotter say don't pass him? Or a crew chief or a spotter?
Well, what got me, and I can't believe NASCAR's not going to take some action on this. There's a lot of chatter on social media about it. You know, if he said don't pass him, but he said don't pass him, Jones. So there was no there's no question about who that message was directed at and what the message was supposed to be. If he had just said don't pass him, I think they might have been able to get away with a plea. But man, it is clearly labeled there. And I think Jones showed a lot of class. He kept his mouth shut for the most part. Even at the end, he had enough class to congratulate his crew chief on a good car. He said the car was good. Good job, guys. And we'll talk about the other bullshit later. I think that showed a lot of class, and I think I have more respect for Eric Jones today than I did in the past. Not that I didn't before, but I didn't pay much attention to him till the situation. But I think, I think he handled it really well.
I think he did too. And I don't have much more to say about that. I mean, there's always going to be, as long as there's big money involved in racing, there's going to be teams that have to look after their own interests. Clinton, I've got to talk about Jimmy Thompson's suggestion, because he's messaged me on the side a couple of times in the last few weeks about sending the top 5 cars to the back of the field and handicapping it the way it used to be to put on a good show.
In what class?
What can you suggest? Any class. Sprint cars at Oshweekon.
Yeah, I think as long as it's fair, it's all right. And what I mean by that is you are using a true handicapping system to move them to the back. In every other class, I think it works. Or not using handicapping certainly doesn't work. Like, I don't think you could just put the best guys at the front every week. I think sprint cars, the way we do it at Oshweekon, they're so dynamic and fast. They end up in traffic that you don't get too many stinker of a shows. And, a lot of people in the recent, say 2-3 years, recent history of the sprint cars at Oshweekon, we watched Dylan Westbrook stink up the show. The kid's a natural. And I think even talking to some of the other crew chiefs, a lot of people are comparing themselves to Dylan Westbrook, thinking you need massive engines in this. The kid could drive a dump truck. It doesn't matter. And I think that's the other thing. But I love to see a show. I also grew up at Merrittville where, every week was handicapping, where Bicknell started 18th and it was a race to get to the front every week. It can work. Your thoughts?
It can work. And I love the notion. I love the idea. When the handicap really worked so many years ago, the fast cars were much faster than the slow cars. Now, not so much. Now it's much tighter fields, and it'd be pretty hard. But I mean, I think it would be very, very entertaining.
We just got a comment that said.
Yeah, I just sent Spencer a lengthy comment that I wanted him to throw up, because, and I'm happy to talk about this too.
Was it the
there
one
are things
about
that we don't have? What's that?
Was it the how come Rivalz can't get a lot of views and Mandy Pouch can?
Yep.
Just look at us. Look at her. That's why.
Here's the thing. how come Race Rivals can't get a lot of views and Mandy Pouch and Hunt the Front are getting way more views? It seems like to me Hunt the Front are getting rich showing YouTube videos. I don't think anyone's getting rich. As big as racing is to us here, and as big as our audience is, and as much as we love our audience, racing is that much bigger in the U.S. Mandy Pouch is the daughter of a living legend. She's very easy to look at, but she's also really race savvy. So she combines all these amazing things. Clinton, you remember Robin Smoker?
Yeah, before most of our time. But let's go back to Mandy for a second, okay? She's a journalist. She's become a videographer. Her dad's a living legend, like you said. Her brother, okay, so her dad won the championship in New Jersey. Her brother won the championship in Delaware. Her boyfriend won the championship in one of the tracks in New York. You know what I mean? Or I might have those destinations wrong, but you know, she's directly related to 3 current modified champions this year. And you know, she's on the pulse, and we're certainly not trying to compete. Let's face it. We get out there, we have fun. This is just our way of getting together virtually. You live in Cambridge, I'm in Niagara. You know, we get to come on here, shoot the bull with some of our friends, get some of our guests on here, and just have fun. That's why we say whatever you guys want us to talk about, we talk about.
Yep. But what we're also doing is building something. So what Mandy does is a lot of PR and marketing, and she's really good at it. Again, don't want to belittle anything because she's good at what she does. What we're doing, and our goal is a little bit different. I'd love to have bigger audiences, and I'd love to have more exciting things to talk about every week, but we stick with what we know. But Clinton, I'm really, really proud of the fact that we've been able to bring together, to mold together dirt fans, asphalt fans. I'm really proud that we've brought Southern Ontario racing to one hub where we can have real conversations and share real opinions. So yes, could the numbers be bigger? And they're going to be, absolutely. But I'm really, really pleased. And I don't take any offense in the question or the comment.
No, not at all.
I love the direction that we're going. And I think there is always a fairly simple explanation to why more people might be watching a different program than what we've got here. But I'll take what we've got here, and I'll hang out with you every Tuesday night, and we'll shoot the shit about racing.
We always get a lot of comments. I do at least a day or two later from people picking up the show, whether it be tomorrow or Wednesday. So we appreciate you still catching on, even if you can't be live with us. We got 1 minute left. I just want to get one mention out. Dale Jr. joined iRacing out, and that's a big thing. We'll go to Luke Duke. John Schneider is a racer. Throw that up quickly, Spencer. So that's some news. We don't really need to delve into that. When you get someone like Dale Jr. getting in there, there's John Schneider, the actual Luke Duke, or he was Bo, right? Bo Duke.
I don't know.
That's his actual race car. That's cool. He said he posted on Twitter, couldn't wait to get back to the track. I think it's cool. Got the 01 generally looking race car in his IMCA modified. One last thing I want to mention, Adam, before we get off. We want to thank everybody. Roger from our GeForce Racing League sent us a note as you get ready to go iRacing here. Please thank everybody on Race Chat tonight that supported our Epsilon Sprint Wraps Triple Crown charity because of our community's commitment, and we doubled our target goal and exceeded the $2,000 U.S. donation they were hoping to gather up. All funds go to the family of 5-year-old Lennox Mobley, who was severely burned in a freak accident a few weeks back. Hope everybody enjoyed all 12 broadcasts, and congratulations to the champion, Steven Spies, who won the street stock. Steve Shaw was the pro late model winner, and Ross Corentina was the 360 champion, and Ashwick Stephen Golden was the overall Triple Crown champion. Don't forget, you can catch all those races still on GeForce TV coming up. Adam's getting ready to go in 10 minutes' time. We'll be live back here on the channel, live from Watkins Glen with the Ovens boys who call the race here for Blacktop Rivals. Adam, anything you want to say before you go get strapped in?
No, just thanks again to Caldecott Millwrights, the premier sponsor of the Blacktop Rivals this season. And I'm not expecting much, Clinton. If I can keep it on the track for most of those 50 laps, I will be very, very pleased.
Are you going to finish on the lead lap tonight?
Likely not.
I appreciate the honesty. Thanks, Spencer, for everything you do. We'll catch up to you guys again. Don't forget, Adam's Mindwell Sessions kicks off Facebook, 7 p.m. every Thursday. Thank you for everybody for joining us, and I'm going to go see who's going to be the leader of the free world. Talk to you guys soon.
That was fun. Enjoy. Ciao, bye.